Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and today we have Eran Mizrahi with us. So hi, how are you, Eran?
Hey Tina, nice to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I've been excited to get to know you because as I was reading your bio and the stuff that you sent, I am so incredibly impressed with your background and just all the stuff that you've tried and attempted and done in your life, and we get to talk about that through the podcast. So let's start off by just introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about who Eran is.
Awesome, yeah, and I have a funky background. There's probably a lot that we didn't even put in that I could get into, but as you mentioned, my name's Eran. I'm from South Africa originally. I grew up in South Africa, and like a lot of people, decided to pursue finance and accounts degree, but also very quickly realized that had a passion for cooking and dropped out, and then went to culinary school. Went back into finance when I realized I wasn't really that great at cooking. And joined Deloitte. Deloitte led me into grad school that got me into the US. And that's really where I was able to, post grad school, marry my love for food as well as, my skill, let's say, in numbers and quant stuff to join a startup called Plated.com that was eventually acquired by Albertsons in 2017. And then I joined Nuts.com, which is a great family business selling thousands of products from all over the world. And post 2020, decided that it was time to explore things on my own. I think I'd always had an entrepreneurial bug and started a small company called Ingredient Brothers, and that's where I am today.
Love it, love it. So you talk about combining the skills, combining the interests. What did that look like and how did that work for you? Like what was the big, I get to combine this stuff?
Yeah, I think, I had the privilege of being able to go and do an MBA. And I think a lot of people look at an MBA, especially here, where is this going to do something for my career? Is it going to give me that next step? Can I justify the spend? And I think to some extent that's true, but there is a long-term benefit of at an older age, being 27 at the time, being able to pause for 2 years after having studied and worked is quite an incredible privilege to have. And I think that enabled me to recognize where I had skill and recognize what I did well and where I could leverage my skill, but then also look and seek out opportunities and identify where in the market I could fit. And I think had I not done that, my path would have been completely different. And so, I think people sometimes rush to progress all the time. And for me, the MBA was actually a time to say, slow down, not tackle the normal recruiting that you have within the program, but try and figure out along the way, like, how do I marry the skills I have with the passion and find a place to fit, and got very lucky and very fortunate with where I landed up.
Yeah, I so resonate with that. The pause. You talk about the pause. Tell us why that pause is so important. You touched on it a little bit, but what did that really allow you to do?
I mean, it allows you to think, which is, probably the hardest thing to do. Where, Alap and us are running Ingredient Brothers, and we've been, doing this since 2021. It's really hard to even pause and think strategically about the business and try and find time to think long-term post 6 months. And the MBA, what it does is it allows you, one, to completely pause in your career, and then you're able to take classes or go to talks and immerse yourself in completely different industries. And it's very low barriers to entry, because if you're reaching out to people and you're like, hey, I'm a student, like, could we chat? People are a lot more open than if you were actively looking for a job or if you were further along in your career. And that gave me the chance to start to define and build almost like a new resume on, where I wanted to go. And that is really hard to do when you're working usually a very stressful job with many other responsibilities on the side.
Yeah, because it's noisy out there. It's chaotic, it's noisy, it's the hustle culture. We kind of had thought that maybe that hustle culture might have gone away a little bit through COVID. I think it's back, right? But we
Yeah.
like go, 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 go. And it's crazy how when we just stop and think and just stop and go, what do I really want? Like, what makes sense here? How do I marry my skill with my passion? I love how you said that. So, what would you say to anybody who's out there listening to this that goes, oh, skill plus passion? Like, what does that look like? How does somebody just even start to dig into what that even means? Because a lot of people are in the go, 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 and they don't ever stop to think about that.
Yeah, I think, two things is one, just to recognize that, I come from a place of privilege, being able to go from an MBA. And so I was afforded time. And I think, that is luck. I didn't do anything to deserve that. And I think for a lot of people, that isn't something that they can just take on and have. And I think, for those people, it's a little bit more challenging. But there is a way for you to, and it's not necessarily your passion, but finding things that like fascinate you and get you interested. I think, I'm not cooking, and so I'm selling raw ingredients, and a lot of my job isn't dealing with the direct ingredients. So yes, there is some emotional connection to the food that we're selling, and I enjoy being in the industry, but there's a fascination with supply chain that I found. And I think that allowed me to recognize that, hey, I do like food, but the fascination with supply chain and making that more efficient and working in supply chain could be a nice way to marry the two. And so try and find things that you're fascinated about. And once you choose that, I think if you just keep pushing in that direction, things tend to happen. And if you're fascinated, it's half the battle of, doing the work and being excited about doing the work every day.
Yeah, which is the important part, like being excited to, I mean, how many people do we know that wake up every day and they go through the grind and they're not excited about life? And you know what I mean? Like there's a real difference that happens internally when you're just really pumped up about life and you've passion
Yeah.
and really waking up every morning on fire and moving forward. And so what I
Yeah.
love about your background, Eran, is that you have like you've done all the things. And so when we talk about the leadership legacy, right? The podcast, Your Leadership Legacy. Talk to us about leadership in general and the different kinds of leadership styles that you've seen out there and what you've seen really works.
Yeah, I've had very different experiences, having been at Deloitte for a number of years, then going to a really fast-growing startup, and then going to a family business that had been around for a long time, also growing, but had been entrenched for many, many, many more years. I think each of those had a very different angle towards leaderships, and each of those I was able to learn different things. I think at Deloitte, just their understanding of people and developing people. And if you buy into the culture and you want to succeed there, it's one of the most incredible places to be. I have a lot of respect for what they've built. It's not for everyone, but it's designed that way. It's not designed to be for everyone. It's designed to give you a platform. And for the people who stay, they excel. And for the people who leave, they also excel. And so I think people owe a lot to that type of infrastructure. And so that taught me a lot about just being very thoughtful, and also understanding that in an industry where you don't have thousands of people doing the same job every day, it's much harder to build the same infrastructure because, at Ingredient Brothers, we have 40 people, which may sound like a lot, but everyone's doing something very different. So to build a personal plan for everyone is a lot more challenging. And then I think at the fast startup, I learned it was less stable from an org standpoint, but a lot about speed, a lot about how to drive teams forward, how to bring teams together across different teams. And so that was, an incredible learning, really fast pace, taught me what was possible and how to bring people together from different parts of the organization to achieve something and get buy-in, even though they're not on your team. And then at Nuts, obviously we went through 2020 and we went from 200 to 600 people. And so I think it was, how do you prioritize in an environment like that and try
That's
and
rapid
keep your wits
scale.
about you? Yeah, rapid scale, and
Yeah.
keep your wits about you, and not panic. And everyone to some extent looks towards the leadership for direction, and also to sense the blood pressure in the room, and how do you um, provide like some sort of certainty and comfort while also managing in a very anxious and high pressure environment.
Yeah, for sure. How has it changed you as a leader, having all those different experiences?
Oh, completely. I mean, as a young kid at Deloitte, I was pretty terrible. I mean, I don't know, compared to the other people at that level, maybe I was okay or the same, but you learn with experience. And I think that you have to be open to adapting and understanding different environments and continuing to build on, right? I'm 3 years into a founder as a company. I'm sure if you interview me in 10 years time, I'll say, wow, what I was doing then was really immature and V0 of leadership. But as long as you're learning and trying to find patterns from other people's experiences, your own lived experiences to implement and then be consistent, then you will improve. And it's not about, I always say to my employees, like, judge me the same way I judge you, which is I'm learning, I'm developing, the company's learning, the company's developing. As long as we're moving forward, then judge me that way. And the same way I'll judge you, right? As long as you're moving forward, as long as you're developing, then, that's how I'll judge you. And I think that works really well.
Yeah, I hear setting expectations, right? And communication, like super important, setting expectations and communication. When I was reading through your stuff, you talk about a unique approach to handling remote teams. So talk to us about how, I mean, everything that you do is remote. Talk to us about how you manage your teams from a remote perspective.
Yeah, I mean, also learning, right, and developing, because it's a whole new world. And I was definitely not pro remote work prior to starting the business, and have drastically changed my viewpoint and feel like there is a place for it for certain individuals who can thrive in this environment. We obviously have to focus a lot on communication. It's very easy in emails for things to get lost in translation, tones to be lost, trying to figure out ways to bridge that gap, because you can't just have a conversation in the office. And so we spend a lot of time, and we spend a lot of time, one, just trying to understand, like, what are the new things that we have to implement because we're a remote workforce. And so one of the things that's top of mind for us right now is, as we've scaled and we have more managers, how do we show them what intentional management is about? And that's very different to in a physical space where, someone can come and ask you a question, you can go over to their desk and ask a question, but in a remote environment, you may not be in a meeting all day with any of your employees, but that's not necessarily good, right? We don't like meetings, but we like being coached. And so how do we make sure that people are getting intentionally managed? And so there are little things that we're learning along the way of where are the gaps and how do we have to structure how we hold ourselves accountable to make this successful. So I think focusing a lot on communication, focusing a lot on defining roles and expectations, and then a lot on people's development and making sure people understand where they, how they fit in the organization and make sure they feel secure in their roles.
Yeah, intention. That's what I heard you say through all of that. It's so important to be intentional about it, have plans for it, be strategic about it. And just have the focus on it. I mean, how many times do we see people, businesses, teams, organizations, whatever it is, we get so focused on that end result that we forget about the people. And that's where a lot of the conflict and everything comes from. So I love where you're going with that. So your leadership legacy, it's all about the legacy that you're leaving. So when you think about all the work that you've got going on, what is your intentional, speaking of intentional, right? Like, what's your intention for the legacy that you're leaving?
I think the biggest thing that I focus on, along with many other things, but the number one thing I really love to focus on is making sure that the people in our org are adding bullet points on their resume. And, that to me is really important. I want to be able to provide an environment where at the end of every quarter, at the end of every year, you're able to look and add quantitative bullet points on your resume and show how you've developed as a person. And we try and recruit people who are seeking that, right? Looking to progress, looking to always improve. And that's my number one focus, is making sure that everyone has that understanding and knows what they need to do to improve their foundation and make themselves more sellable internally and externally, right? That's super important.
So talk about in the interview process, right? You're bringing somebody in, you're hiring somebody. How do you know that somebody fits that bill? How do you know that somebody's open, they're in the growth mindset? Like, how do you gauge that?
Yeah, I think number one is, we have a set of values that really align with the remote culture. Progress is in the doing, owning your own future, an insatiable appetite for discomfort. These are the types of things that we try and suss out of the people that we're interviewing for. Are you able to work on your own? Do you seek help every time you hit a roadblock, or are you trying to solve problems on your own? Are you ambitious? Have you shown that in your career? Are you disciplined? Are you organized so that you can manage in a remote environment? And so we try and interview, along the values that we have to ensure that we're bringing people in. Now, it's not perfect, and you don't always know, and the person doesn't always know whether this environment works well for them, but we've improved over time. If you look at how our hiring has evolved, I think we've really improved over time.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and so it's like the test and learn kind of a thing, right? And so I love that. What I really, really appreciate about you, Eran, is that I feel like you have an eye on the people. And there's so many businesses out there that, again, that we focus on the results and we forget about the people. And so if anybody's listening out there and they're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing, how can they find you? Give us all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, easiest LinkedIn. We're very active. The whole team is there. So you get a good feel for our culture and how we operate. And then ingredientbrothers.com. And then my email address is eran@ingredientbrothers.com. Very simple. So, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. 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 Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for
You're
having
an
me.
incredible leader. Your experience in the past and what you've built and experienced is really, really incredible. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, everyone. That is this episode. We'll see you next time on Your Leadership Legacy. Bye. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueuteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.